Hey guys, what's up? IrishEmerald here. Welcome back to another episode of the Core Chat podcast where once again I'm joined by OPJellicent.
What's going on, everyone? I'm the OPJellicent, and today, for a change, I actually have a lot to say about one topic. But Iris, do you want to talk about Smogon first?
We'll just give we'll actually, for once, you actually have something to say. It's not me ranting, which is brilliant. I'm pretty sure the listeners will actually love to hear you go off and on for a change rather than me. I think that'd be very fresh. But we'll start with what we're going to be going through today, guys. Unfortunately, at the moment, we got no Smogon news to actually talk about. We got no tier changes. No update on any tournaments. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, this has been the first month in a while where there's just been no tier changes at all.
Yeah.
There's always tier shifts, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So we got no changes to the meta to discuss. So no Smogon news means no chat by us anyway. So because we got nothing to opinionate to really say. So we're going to bypass the Smogon news today, but we do have a new segment which we're going to get into. I'm calling it hashtag HotTake. That's the way I'm calling it. So if you don't like the hashtag, yeah, thank you. If you don't like the hashtags, you just got to swallow the pill. Today Jay's going to have a hot take for us, and we're also going to dive into a little bit of draft leagues, and we also got a Twitter question from one of you guys that we're going to chat about briefly at the end of the show. So
yeah, it shouldn't be as meaty of a podcast as last week. We reached like an hour and a half, but we should still have a good amount to talk about.
Yeah,
here, so.
we should have a good hour in us because we have UBL, we have some playoff discussion and all that kind of good stuff in the draft league, which is always good to say. Before we dive in to the hot take, I just want to say we did mention last episode that we would like to have a segment where we talk about new up and coming leagues. I'm going to admit I haven't done any research on that yet. So I did say last episode, if you guys have any suggestions as to who, even if it's an individual player, an individual league, or any league in particular that you think is up and coming or that's interesting or that's really exciting, let us know. Because A, it makes my job and Jelly's job a whole lot easier trying to find something.
Exactly, yeah.
And B, if you mention it, then there's a really good chance you're going to get mentioned as well and talked about. So if you want that, then, or you just want to be a cool person and help us out, do that. Well, I think with all that being said, that's all the household stuff out of the way. We will dive right into our new segment of the show, hashtag hot take. I'm going to hand over to you, buddy. You can take it away. I got my cup of tea this time. I'm going to enjoy this. This is going to be brilliant.
I have a lot to say about this. So essentially, the first hot take is going to be about comparison between Draft League and Standard Play, because I'll hear Draft League players a lot completely disregard the competitive aspects of Standard Play. They'll say stuff like, Draft League takes more skill than standard tiers ever could. I'd like to start by saying a lot of these players have no idea about the OU meta, beyond the fact that like Landorus T and Nagirna are the best Pokemon. The players who actually do ladder aren't that great who play draft. Besides Gypsy King and Rob Jr., who play in pretty much every Smogon tournament there is, every Draft League player I've seen ladder cannot even attain like anything above an 85% GXE, which for those of you who aren't aware, that's basically our chance of winning against the average ladder player. So essentially, it doesn't take too much sense to talk crap about. It doesn't make too much sense, to talk crap about a form of play that you really have no extensive knowledge about. Now, even if these players don't know too much about OU, they'll argue that they can still assert that draft is more skill-based just due to, I guess, the components that go into it, such as team building aspects like speed tiers and identifying play styles. But these aspects are pretty prevalent in standard play as well if you really think about it. If one really starts to understand the OU meta, you'll realize that you can sort of treat the different playstyles of the meta like different drafts in a sort of way. Your team of 6 needs to be able to deal with every single playstyle that the opponent can bring, since there isn't really like an 11 Pokemon roster that you know is coming and you can just counter individual threats, right? You really have to think about the bigger picture. And I see a lot of Draft League players argue too that this takes more skill just because you have to prepare a new team for every single game. Whereas for Smogon Play, you can just go to like Mr. Jambad's comment section and just grab a team and be good to go. But I really don't see how that's any different from just a Draft League player having a super stacked front office and having them build broken sets every week and just winning every game. It's really not that big of a difference right there. Both front offices and OU team builders cannot make any battler better, but essentially it makes them more consistent by improving the quality of the teams one is using. So the main point I'm trying to get at right here is the people who are talking down towards a form of play such as OU, it's so the two play styles are pretty much so similar that it makes no sense to talk down upon one without considering the similar aspects of it towards the others, right? It's sort of like they're just kind of throwing out points and not really backing them up. It's almost similar to like the horrible casters we discussed last week. So that's sort of my take on it. I really don't think that the arguments make too much sense. There's so much similarities that the arguments just don't really pan out, I guess. But do you have anything to add on to this, Irish?
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play devil's advocate, right? Because
Okay.
because I kind of believe that, you know, if you're good at one, it's very easy to translate the skill over to the other. That's the way I
Hmm.
believe. Like, if you're a good Pokemon battler, it'll shine on both formats because, again, they're very similar. But I'm going to play devil's advocate for this one and kind of try and pick holes in your argument to see if we could, just to kind of flush it out a little bit. So, would you say that a draft league player then would not necessarily have the same team, would be a better or worse team builder than a Smogon player?
Well, I would say that if you can really understand the components of Draft League team building, you are going to be a solid Smogon team builder as well, just because understanding how to EV mons is vital. Obviously, speed creeps, that's like the basic stuff, but knowing how to distribute your EVs to specifically live certain moves, whether you factor in hazards or not, is very important. For example, in a lot of the best teams in OU, people will have specifically designed EV spreads just to go ahead and live one specific move from one specific mon. So that's one big similarity I find between Smogon and Draft. You can really just view specific threats, but I really think the big difference between the two team building aspects is in Draft League team building, you just consider one playstyle based on how the opponent's draft appears. In Smogon team building, you have to consider every single playstyle in the meta. So that's why I think Smogon team building, in a way, can be a lot more extensive and a lot more complicated.
But then a draft league player, right, would argue that if a team comp can only run one style, then it is a poor team composition, right? So therefore, a good draft league player would draft a team that could play several different ways, and they would draft Pokemon that are versatile in several different roles. So wouldn't that argument say that a draft Smogon player can team build for various different has to prep for various different playstyles be null and void, considering the fact that a good draft league player would draft a team that can play several different ways.
Well, in regards to that, I would say when you look at the two different aspects, when you're looking at different playstyles in one draft of a draft league team, there's probably three or four Pokemon that fit that playstyle, and you can specifically prepare for each threat. Like if they have a bulky core of Tangrowth, Alomomola, for example, and then maybe
Ugh.
like a regenerator core on top of that with the Reuniclus, you can specifically prep for that regenerator core, whether it's bringing Trace Mons, whether it's bringing Pokemon that can take advantage of hazards when they're trying to switch around of regenerators so much, and then you can just prep for the offense from there. When you're thinking about the ladder meta, you have to consider so many different like cores of these playstyles. For example, Celesteela, Tangrowth, Toxapex, that's one great balance playstyle, but then you have other great options like Clefable, Gliscor, Ferrothorn, Landorus T, like bulky variants. There's just so many different aspects that go into the different playstyles of the ladder meta that I really don't think it's fair to compare that.
So, but all right, okay, fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. Excuse me.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You
a
don't sound
draft.
satisfied yet?
No, no, I want to pick it up. I want to try and pick holes in this, so by the end of it, we can come to the conclusion that there's no comparison between the two.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the reason why I'm just trying to play devil's advocate as much. But
Hmm.
a draft league player, right, or a primarily draft league player would argue then that it's very easy for somebody to build on Smogon because they can just do 252, 252 for 4 or 5 of their mons because it's the simplest thing to do when they say, all right, I need a physical wall. That's it. I'm going to dump 252 into his def, 252 HP or 248 HP, whichever HP number you want to land on. But a draft league player argued that you can't do that because that's extremely lazy prep and you will get caught out because if you don't prep for various different moves on threats on your opponent's team, then you will absolutely get demolished.
Ooh, that's an interesting point. How do I want to word this? Essentially, what I'm trying to get at right here is the mods that run 252 spreads in the standard ladder play pretty much are forced to. It's the best idea. Obviously, you're not going to run anything except for max attack, max speed, jolly, mega metacham, right? It would make no sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of similar in the draft league meta. Obviously, you can EV things to live certain moves. Like you just put a bit of bulk and then put the rest into speed and attack if you really want to. That's sort of the simplest way to look at it. But when you have such a standardized meta, I guess, you sort of have to just go along with it, right? Now, obviously, that's kind of it sort of counters what I said earlier, where they're so similar because you sort of have to consider the similarities between EV spreads. However, I really think that it's sort of just that's the one big difference, right? You can't really dodge the whole standardized meta. Obviously, on something like a Z-Rain and Spinifeed, you're just going to run max special attack, max speed, timid. Now, when you're looking at unique Pokemon like Buzzwole, for example, Pokemon like Megalatias, there are so many different EV spreads you can go along with in the OU meta. You can EV it to tank certain hits from Z moves, such as Landorus T, Flynium Z after rocks. It's just really not an aspect that's completely ignored in the OU or really any ladder meta. It's just on specific Pokemon and specific threats, where you'll see that a lot in draft too. On a lot of Pokemon, you'll just find that running max attack and then a little bit of bulk and a certain speed creep is the best way to go. You'll see that on a lot of Scarfers. I really think that it's very easy to just accuse that of being such a sort of, I guess, brainless way to EV Pokemon on the ladder when it's really prevalent in draft as well.
I don't know how prevalent it is now. Maybe in smaller leagues, or maybe with people who are more or in like, you know, maybe just starting out playing draft, like it might be a bit more prevalent because it's the easiest thing to do. But you know, I don't know how prevalent it would be in draft. I would say that I would like to think that most players would prep well enough when they're playing draft format that they would EV their defensive Pokemon accordingly. They would EV their offensive Pokemon accordingly so that it can live a certain hit while setting up a Swords Dance and then proceeding to clean up or what have you. So I don't know. I think when it comes to EV spreads that I get your point that there are certain Pokemon that
it's just forced.
Yeah, it's forced, right? Like Mega Machamp. Now Mega Machamp probably is forced to do that in draft league as well. I know I'm shooting myself in the foot with that comparison, but there are some Pokemon, let's say Swords Dance Garchomp, for instance, right? Garchomp has 102 speed, right? So it's able to outspeed base 101s, but a lot of people will run 252 speed on Garchomp. Why do you need to run 252 speed on Garchomp when you can run enough speed to outspeed base 100s and put the 4 EVs on the extra 8 EVs on speed F, defense, HP, like that, like a draft league player would say that that's kind of, you know, that's just lazy Smogon prep there. They just dumped all the EVs on a Pokemon that, you know, that they wanted when they could have tuned that a little bit. You know, I know this is like, I'm nitpicking here, but like that this is what a draft league player would say when they're arguing that draft is harder than Smogon. They would say like there's a Pokemon that, you know, just gets done in all lazy, like where when you could fine tune it more specifically to do something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from. Well, I guess, how would I want to argue this? Obviously, I did just mention, obviously, there are forced EV spreads in OU just because of the standard playstyles, but I really think that while obviously newer draft league players will maybe lean towards Smogon EVs, I definitely think that an experienced Smogon battler will recognize assuming you play both, a good battler in draft and Smogon will recognize the comparison between the two and identify how you can apply draft league EV spreads to standard sets on Smogon. Now, obviously, these are all on the non-forced ones, right?
Yeah.
Mega Champ 252, but it's really not an aspect that's completely out of the picture in Smogon play, and that's what I'm trying to get at right here. You really can incorporate these ideas into certain EVs. Like, I've seen 5 different Clefable EV spreads. I've seen 5 different Lando EV spreads there. Yeah. It's really actually prevalent. That's just what I'm trying to sort of hit at right here.
Yeah, no, I definitely get your point, and I do agree. I'm just nitpicking, yeah. But I definitely agree that you do, like, it's not as standard as what most people think. That it is a little bit more creative nowadays, and there is a lot more sets out there, and you have to kind of you do have to kind of EV stuff to tailor for certain hits.
Especially in the Z-move era, yeah, there's so many good breakers. You need to make sure that your bulk can out-tank all of those. That's where sort of the specific EV spreads on bulky mons in OU sort of comes into play.
Yeah, definitely. It's not like in Oris where you can just do 252 split F and 252 HP and you're golden. Absolutely not. It's a lot more different nowadays. But just to keep, you know, kind of, you know, playing devil's advocate here a little bit.
Go ahead.
A draft league player, right? Okay, if we just move away from the prep side of things and the team build side of things, when they're battling, right, a draft league player would always argue, and this is probably been the argument from like the dawn of the draft league format, right? A draft league format would
Yeah.
always argue that while in battle, they have to consider a host of different things. Like they have to, like they can't assume a set, right, on a Pokemon because it could be absolutely anything. Like it could legitimately be absolutely anything. You can make safe assumptions like when you on team preview to say this Pokemon could be scarfed, or like these 3 Pokemon could be scarfed and what have you, right? Or okay, but until they actually start scouting for stuff, they have no idea what that Pokemon could be carrying whatsoever because it could carry absolutely anything. And a draft league player would always say that when they're battling, they have to play at a higher level because they can't just make assumptions to sets. Whereas a Smogon player, when they see certain Pokemon on team preview, they can automatically assume what they're going to do.
Well, I could sort of tie this into the old argument of you could apply this to OU as well. Obviously, there are things you can assume, right? You can look at a team and say, this is the only rocker, it's going to have the rocks, and it's probably not Scarf, right? When you get enough experience to do that, you'll kind of apply it to both formats. However, I think that scouting for certain techs is really cool in OU too. There's definitely things you'll see like random nature powers, random unique Z moves that you really have to keep in mind because of your win conditions. Now, I think the biggest reason why people actually use that argument as draft is because the stakes are much higher, right? You have one chance to scout for this move, whereas if you lose this game, you're not going to be able to make it. You can make it up for it there on the ladder, but I definitely think that how would I want to go with this? I guess you can scout on the ladder too is basically what I'm trying to get at right here. There are like obviously there are players who will just run random like 6 standard mons and then you can just go ahead and do well with that. Coco Lucha, for example, you know exactly what's coming. It's gonna be either Shikaberry or leftovers or Z move Coco and then Lucha. But if a really good draft league player and a really good Smogon player, if you understand both, will know that you have to scout in both the ladder and the draft league meta. It's really just not something you can ignore. Obviously, I'm sure every experienced ladder player will know they've gotten caught off guard by random techs before. Random choice items like Choice Scarf Manaphy, I've seen that do a lot of work in OU before just because people don't expect it. It's able to revenge kill win conditions really reliably. So I don't think the scouting and trying to consider so many aspects of a team is that unprevalent on any ladder meta.
But surely surely it's easier. Like that's what a draft league player would say. Like surely it's easier to make the reads on team preview than it is on in the draft league battle because you could easily point out as like what mons do what more often than not in a Smogon battle than in a draft league battle.
Yeah, that is for sure true. It's kind of hard to like I think it is easier to argue against that just because you can obviously say scouting, applies to both. But I think that if you really prep well in draft, you'll know every single tech that the opponent can run, and if you really consider that in OU as well, you'll know every single tech that the opponent could have on this Pokemon when you're building your team that would make you want to scout for something else, right? It sort of just ties back to the whole team building thing. You'll know what to watch out for that's unexpected when you are trying to build for either a draft or certain threats on the opponent's team on the ladder. I really think it applies to both.
All right. So speaking of techs, right?
Yeah.
I will actually start supporting the Smogon argument here in a moment. I swear, guys. But like a draft league player would then say that they have to keep in mind more techs than a Smogon player, right? Because like you wouldn't see Occuberry Scizor, for instance, if you're playing UU, right? You wouldn't see Occuberry Scizor wouldn't be a massive tech, or like it's. I'm not saying it's not uncommon, like it's not like crazy wild, but it's not it's not like the first option. But in draft league though, they would have to keep in mind Band, Orb, Occuberry, all those kind of various different items for Scizor, and that would apply for pretty much every single Pokemon bar like your Mega Slot. Like they would have to keep in mind that there's way more techs out there for each individual Pokemon. So a draft league player would then say, right, okay, scouting then it might be similar in Smogon and draft, but the amount of text that draft league players would experience throughout a whole season makes it a lot more difficult than in Smogon, because in 10 battles in Smogon, you might only see a crazy bit of tech once, but in 10 battles in Draft League, you could see a crazy bit of tech in every single game. So they would then argue that a Draft League game is harder than a Smogon game.
Well, I think this really just goes to how much skill it takes to identify what techs you need to scout for. Obviously, it's just a fact, right? There are going to be more techs naturally in Draft League than on the ladder, but when these techs are game-changing, that's when you should really scout for them, right? I think that's where the skill really applies to both. If you have a win condition and you're afraid of a tech, scout for it in both draft and standard. That's just a skill that applies to both. However, if it's not your win condition, the tech could always catch you off guard in draft, and that may not be as prevalent in Smogon play, but in both cases, if you're not scouting for a tech that doesn't apply to your win condition, you'll be safe either way. So I really think that while sure you're scouting for so many different options in draft, you really don't have to a lot of the time in both the metas. You just have to make sure that you're focusing on one game plan, which is, I think, that the aspect that kind of ties into both the metas.
Mm-hmm. So I do kind of agree there, because I was kind of hoping you would kind of swing back and throw back at me. Well, if you should know what tech could beat you based on the team you build and the team composition, because that's what a Smogon player, as I said, I actually will fight for the Smogon core as well. Like, a Smogon player would also say that a Draft League player should know what techs could hurt them, whereas they're trying to cover as many bases as they possibly can in their prep. Like, they have to account for seeing absolutely everything. They have to account for seeing stall, hyper offense, offensive balance, defensive builds, the whole lot, hazard stacking. They have to account for everything. Whereas a Smogon player would say, well, a Draft League player relatively knows what 11 mons or 12 mons on a roster, and they should be able to know what techs could hurt them and to scout for it as well. So I think when you look
exactly, that's definitely something I could have touched on as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine, because it is your hot take after all,
Yeah, for sure. I really like that point, actually. When you know what 11 Pokemon you're prepping for, you can pretty much make a checklist of techs that you have to watch out for that will affect your win condition, and form a specific game plan designed for your opponent's draft, right? Whether it's play style, whether it's just you're trying to outbulk them, you're trying to maintain speed control sort of thing. I think that on OU, you can sort of do the same thing. You'll know that, okay, this playstyle can contain these techs on these certain Pokemon that will affect my win condition against them, and I have to scout for these, right?
Yeah.
It's really just a similar aspect that applies to both.
Yeah, no, I think it is. No, I think it is. And I think both sides have like an argument to say which one's tougher, but I definitely agree with your what you said at the top of the segment, that it's kind of they're just kind of fight to see who's got the bigger dick, essentially, but that's what it is. Whereas it's not really the case at all. Like the skills, as you said, like come across in both plays, but the team aspect is slightly different. I think probably the one thing where a draft might be a little bit more difficult than Smogon is the fact that you have to select 11 Pokemon, right? And you might not get, or 12 Pokemon, whatever the roster size is, but you might not get the roster you really want, or you're not really comfortable with, or it's very one-dimensional, and it becomes a bit of a struggle then for you to be able to make that work. I think that's probably maybe the one aspect where it's a little bit more difficult when a draft hasn't gone your way and you're trying to fix it and get it working. And to be honest, I don't think drafting kind of is a good argument to say which one's harder, because I think when it comes to actually Pokemon battling, it's team building and making raids, making plays that's the comparison. Whereas drafting is kind of like, you might as well compare that to playing, Madden or NFL or NBA 2K19 or something like that, like where you go and do draft, career mode and that, because you're essentially just trying to pick the best Pokemon you possibly can to make a good roster. So
yeah, I guess that's the one thing you can't really argue against, because obviously that's a factor that's just completely unprevalent in OU. You have to make sure that when you're drafting, you just have all the tools, but that's sort of like a structured way of trying to, you can sort of break it down into like a formula, right? Just make sure you have all of this, make sure your speed tiers are good, and then once you understand that, it's really just the similar aspects from there. It's really not that difficult.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely agree. I think the just to wrap up the segment, I think when it comes to skill level, there's no real way of saying are Smogon players higher level than draft league players. I think it's probably easier to measure who's a better Smogon player than is on a draft league player. Anyone who asks me who's a really good draft league player or who's my top 5, forget about asking me, guys, because it's near impossible to rank draft league players. You kind of just have to put them in groups because it's very difficult to rank them. Whereas in Smogon it's probably easier to rank. But I think when it comes to like skill level, the skill need to play well in either or. I think they're so closely knit as what Jelly was saying earlier on. But we're only kind of discussing skill level. I think if it comes to as a viewer which one you prefer, I think that's your own, or as a player which one you prefer playing, that's your own personal preference. But I think when it comes to actual skill level, it's not much of an argument to say which one's better than the other. I definitely agree with Jelly there on that one.
They both have similar aspects, but they both have aspects that make both of them stand out from the other, right? You just have to sort of acknowledge that and see that they basically both have their own components.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So all you Twitter trolls out there, cut it out, guys. Cut it out. We just we just told you guys what exactly was what. So cut it out and don't quit your bitching. That's what we're telling you guys to do. Anyway, so we'll wrap up that segment there. Next week we'll have another one. I think I have one next week, so expect lots of ranting, guys. I'm gonna be coming with stats. I'm gonna be coming actually stats, Jelly. So you gotta be primed and ready for me to be dishing out the facts.
The numbers, I got this. Don't worry. I'll try to refute them. Don't worry.
Imagine me coming at a rant with facts. Oh my god.
Wow, imagine. I completely winged this one, but this man's coming here all prepared. Like I'm.
That's it. I'm gonna have reviews. The whole lot. I'm gonna be ready to go. I got my notes, man. I got notes. Anyways, we'll move on to the draft leagues. Knocking around at the moment. We are going to start off with the UBL, which just had the quarterfinals there over the weekend or the previous weekend. If you guys haven't checked them out, definitely do so. Our own OPJellicent managed to pick up a 2-0 win, which was very, very nice. Very nice. I'm just going to quickly touch. Well, I'll quickly touch on your game, Jelly. If you want to check out Jelly, so definitely go over and watch his side of Al. But I definitely felt for you, man, because Jelly was playing Silver, and of course I roasted Silver last week, so Jelly was under immense pressure to win, and he did. But I definitely felt for you, buddy, because Silver is a very slow player, and I felt for you towards the end of that game. I was like, this oh my god, this is so slow. Because if anyone doesn't realize how slow Silver is, Silver will take up the whole timer to decide to play, and he's notorious for it. I wasn't slating him for that last week, but I definitely felt for you this week, buddy. When I was watching your side, I was like, oh, I remember this feeling well.
Yeah, the thing that annoys me about that most is just I don't really mind him taking very long, right? Like obviously I'll play the long game and try to execute my game plan, but it just makes the video a lot less entertaining when people are just sitting there for a minute and 30 seconds every turn, just with nothing happening. I honestly think that just takes out so much value.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I remember when, like, a few times I played Silver when I was uploading, I do well for the first 20 minutes, talking in between turns and speaking about my game plan. And I'm like, okay, I think he's going to go do this, and it gave me a lot of time to plan out moves. Yeah. But I guess there's a certain point in the battle where you know exactly what you're going to do for the next 5 turns, right? Because you've just been given the time to think about it, and you're talking about it on video, and it literally gets to the point where you almost become delirious trying to figure out, like, what do I say here now? Like, it's a bit crazy. So it was very unfortunate with that, like, but we managed to pick up a 2-0 win, which was the main things, and it didn't go to the timer. Almost did, but didn't go to the timer. So happy days. Yeah. Happy days.
I'll take it, I guess. It was a fun game, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take it. Yeah, definitely go check out Jelly's side of it, guys. Link to his channel in the description below. All that kind of good stuff. We're giving out a cheap plug there. We start off with Vepsis versus Root? Will we have a chat about that one first?
I watched that one. Nice and body bag.
Nice and body bag. Spoilers, by the way, guys. Vepsis won 5-0 after Root beating him early on in the season, which is a bit of a surprise. Do you want to take this one first before I dive into it?
Yeah, sure. I really just loved how Vepsis sort of saw the applications of screens plus Mega Gallade. He knew that Mega Gallade's Fizz Def was the main thing holding it back, so he consistently managed to get up Reflect, or I think it was Light Screen, one of the two. It might have even been both, but basically he saw the drawbacks to Mega Gallade and really managed to patch those up against the Roots roster, and I'm pretty sure he just ended up picking up like 4 or 5 kills, right?
Yeah, like, so the Mega Glade absolutely tore Root's team to shreds under the Light Screen. Because he brought Light Screen, and it just tore his team to absolute shreds, which is very unfortunate because Root's team is very specially orientated. So being behind Light Screen meant that Mega Glade with natural speed F and like under the screen could do a ton of work. It was terrifying. I was watching this game from Vep's side. I was, and I love Root, by the way, guys. If you guys didn't know, I am a big fan of Root. And I have roasted him. I roast him enough on my own channel to not roast him here. But I have to say, I was very unimpressed with his prep this week. If I'm being honest, because I saw it on I was watching it on Vep's side, and I was very disappointed that Root didn't bring anything for Alola Muck. Very, very disappointed.
Exactly, yeah. All those special offenses, especially behind Light Screen, there was just no way for him to break it.
Yeah, absolutely no way to break it. He brought Azumarill as his only physical wall, but I was absolutely stunned that he brought nothing for Alola Muck, and he didn't have a Mon to switch into it, or he didn't have a Mon to threaten it out. I thought it was a bit crazy. Now, I know his roster isn't great with dealing with Alola Muck, but at the same time, I would have thought he would have brought something that would have been able to kind of deal with it, because the way it was kind of shaping up, like, he has Mega Camera up. Don't get me wrong, he has Mega Camera up, and that could have done a bit of work against it. But the way that the Root match went for Root, he just allowed Alola Muck to do all the work. Like, Mega Glade got all the highlights and the kills, but Alola Muck did all the heavy work in that game.
It was the pivot every time. It was so ridiculous.
Every single time. Root's Registeel set. I think probably Jelly, you might agree with me on this one. If you've watched this game, guys, right, and you watch it on Vep's side, and you'll see that Vep's kind of figures out the Registeel set very quickly. But this would probably be a big thing for newer players to draft if you're still trying to get to grasp with it, or you're trying to look for a way to improve your building. If you design a Pokemon and it gets walled by another Pokemon on your opponent's team, you gotta have a Pokemon that can switch in on the Pokemon that was that set that you create. So for example, Root brought a Registeel set with Toxic, Stealth Rocks, Seismic Toss, and Hidden Power Bug, right? Because he brought the Hidden Power Bug to deal with Celebi. That set got absolutely walled by Alola Muck. Absolutely walled. And Alola Muck beats that set every time because Veps has brought his... and Veps has brought this Recycle Berry set with Gluttony several times. This isn't the crazy set that Veps just came up with. And this is a very standard set for Alola Muck as well. So, Root brought a Pokemon that got absolutely shut down by a relatively standard Alola Muck set, okay? That's fine, because Registeel had tech to answer for Celebi, set up rocks, and Seismic Toss always gets 50 damage off no matter what. So he brought his stuff with. Registeel had a role in that, and that's fine. But if that Pokemon gets walled by a solid mod on Vep's team like Alola Muck, you have to have an answer. You have to have a Pokemon that can switch in on Alola Muck. You cannot just allow Alola Muck to come in on Registeel and you not have a switch in for it. Like, that's extremely
and not only...
Go on.
You can't not only have a switch in, you have to have a Pokemon that can reliably wall break that Alolan Muck when you switch it in. You can't just safely try to switch in and then make nothing happen. You really have to make sure, okay, how am I going to deal with this? I have to somehow force it out, make sure something else takes hazards damage, this takes damage when it comes back in. It just felt like Root really didn't have a game plan around that thing at all.
No, absolutely nothing. And his answer was to try and just get enough chip with Registeel so that something could come in and then threaten the Alola Muck out. But that was never going to be the case, because anytime Alola Muck looked like it was going to get into the yellow next turn, Veps just clicked Recycle, got back up then to 85% HP. Same old thing again, got hit off, all that kind of good stuff. So it was kind of disastrous there by Root, and I kind of have Root up as a decent draft league player, but that was very poor prep by him to not have a Pokemon that can switch into Alolan and B, a Pokemon that can break it. As I said, his roster isn't great for dealing with Alolan. It's a big weakness on his roster, but that's, you could have designed something to deal with it. I don't think Choice Banded Azumarill is that Pokemon, because if that gets red, it's a poison jab, Azumarill gets knocked out. So I think, he probably was forced to bring Mega Camerupt and he didn't, because even though that's not a reliable switch the whole time, Mega Camerupt is still not an easy Pokemon to switch into with a Fire Blast. So that would have forced Vepsis to make tough decisions, and Root would have got a nice chip off. It is what it is. But yeah, if you're a newer draft league player, or even if you're a draft league player that's looking to improve, when you design a Pokemon, you got to, and when you're done kind of designing it, see if it gets walled by anything. Check check the scenarios. I always say that's my probably biggest advice. If someone has gotten the foundations and they're looking to make the next step, I always tell somebody, see what scenarios that Pokemon's going to create when you're building. Like if that Pokemon, if Registeel is going to create the scenario where Alolan Muck comes in, what is your answer then? What is your next move? If you don't have an answer for that, you need to figure it out, because that's going to be a reliable switch in all of a sudden, because once that gets figured out, Alolan Muck will come in and wall you. So if you're a draft player and you're trying to come up with something different or come up or improve, that would be my piece of advice, I think.
Yeah, I think that's what really separates the best draft league players from maybe the average ones. Like, the average individuals will think, okay, I can kill this with this Pokemon, but the best ones will actually think, okay, in this scenario, what can I do? Is it going to set up on me? Can I switch out into this counter reliably? I think you really have to actually envision what's your game plan going in against this Pokemon, instead of just knowing that a certain Pokemon can revenge it or potentially switch in if you get the call right. I really don't think that's smart.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's a skill that comes with time, practice, and as I tell everybody, get people to review your battles. If you have somebody that you can go to about trying to learn prep, go to them and ask them, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? Because it's the easiest way to get better is ask somebody you think is better than you, and they can help you a little bit. And then as time goes on, you'll get to their level, and you'll be every time you come up with prep and you get it to be double checked or whatever, it's already going to be solid. It's already going to be at a higher level. So yeah, I think that was kind of story of Vepsis and Root. I thought Root was very poor this week. Vepsis just kind of did Vepsis things and just dominated from start to finish. And
yeah. It was not even a game. It was pretty clear who was winning that, 10 turns in.
Yeah, it was very simple. Once he realised that nothing was getting through that Alolan Muck, it was just a matter of time and what the score was going to be, and that was that. Which is unfortunate.
But do you want to touch on another really interesting one, Dr. Slacking and Ultra Player now?
I do. Do you know something? I actually am delighted about this game. I am delighted. I thought this was a brilliant game. I was a big fan of this game. I know we roast Slacking a lot on this pod, but I thought he was brilliant this week. I thought his prep was on point. He didn't give himself enough credit. He should have given himself way more credit over this. He did. He had the right amount of prep. He knew that Celesteal was a problem. He even gave us a shout out, which was lovely. And I'm not just kind of giving him props because he gave us a shout out, but he knew from prep Celesteal was a problem. He knew he wasn't going to be able to break it easily. But he kind of went into the mindset that he has to put Josh under pressure for him to be able to do well, because if Josh got pressure on him, Slacking was eventually going to lose. So the fact that he knew, right, we're just going to go in, click buttons, make and create 50-50 situations and force Josh to make a play he doesn't want to. I think Slacking did very, very well in creating those 50-50 scenarios, getting the 50-50s right, and preserving his win con until the very end with the Infernape, because we always said that the Infernape was the only Pokemon that can reliably break Celesteela, and that's exactly what happened to Infernape. And Slacking brilliantly positioned his Pokemon to finish off the Celesteela properly, and that was brilliant.
Exactly. I really love how he identified what his flaws were in the first game in week number 1, and really just built upon that. He knew in the first game he had nothing for Celesteela, and it showed. He even acknowledged that. We, mentioned that in this podcast last week, and he pulled off a really brilliant way to just knock it out, and it worked out for him.
It was brilliant. And it was really entertaining to watch, because he was trying to force all these scenarios, and he knew what he was trying to do, and he always had a game plan in mind. He knew what the end goal was. He knew after he got a little bit more chip on Celesteela that the Diggers B was able to do it as well. Yeah, like he really put himself into a brilliant position to win the game. So it was absolutely fantastic to watch. He should have given himself more credit, because that was not an easy matchup at all. That we all had Josh winning that game, and it was brilliant that Slacking against the odds pulled it off. He actually did a really good job. I thought Josh's complaints about the hacks, the leaf storm miss on Mega Sceptile was a bit null and void, because he, like as Slacking pointed out, he could have easily gone in after Sceptile went down and set up the autonomize against Palo-san, because what's like Celesteela was packing energy ball. Celesteela could have taken on the Palo-san 1v1, and at +2 there wasn't exact +2 speed. Celesteela, I don't think Slacking beats it. So I think Ultra Player kind of choked there in that regard, and I also had further opportunities down the line to set up Celesteela. So I think if Josh is complaining about that hacks, he should probably have a further look at his plays directly after it, because he also choked. And
yeah, spam Dragon Pulse in that scenario. Make sure it's in range of that energy ball, and then bring out Celesteela after. I think that's a much better option there.
I totally agree. Absolutely totally agree. Why risk the miss when he had the perfect setup there? I don't know what was going through his head. But I agree. I think it wasn't hacks that lost Josh the game. It was chokes, but Slacking also forcing Josh to make very difficult 50-50 calls, and Slacking getting the majority of those 50-50 calls right was what won him the game, which was really good. Really, really good.
Exactly, yeah. And then, I don't know if you actually got to this one, but did you check out Dai and Goldoa?
No, because sure, Dai's going to win because he's got the God team from me, right? So doesn't matter, right?
Every week?
Yeah, exactly. So I can't watch it, I'm just there watching it. I'm like, this is simple. And when I watched this battle last week, he was like, meh, I'm not going to bother battling Frosted. I'm just going to get this battle done, and that'll be that. So I was just not invested in him. He's got the God team. If he fails, it's because he played with the God team I left behind, and if he wins, it's because he had literally a perfect team to start off with. And that's my take on it. That is literally my take on it. So I'm not interested. I'm sorry, Dai. Sorry, buddy, but not interested. So I didn't watch it. Did you watch it?
I did watch it. I actually, Goldoa Dragon argued a lot of factors at the end of this game. Obviously, he didn't have enough time. He was already getting ready to, pretty much just check out for the night, and then Dai hit him up and was like, let's battle. So I definitely feel bad for him, but at the same time, I really don't think that's an excuse. I played at 5 a.m. and I pulled up and actually made it happen. I don't really know why you can't just kind of deal with it. That's sort of my take on that.
Can I actually, just before we switch gears, right? That was absolute BS by Silver, making you play at 5 a.m., right? If everyone doesn't know the time zones, Silver is in my time zone in Ireland, right? So he's 5 hours ahead. He made you, Jelly, wake up at 10 a.m. or 10 a.m. UK Irish time, 5 a.m. your time, right? In Eastern.
Yeah.
That was absolutely crazy, right? If he could battle at 10 a.m., what was stopping him battling at 12 a.m., 12 midday, 1 p.m., right? And Silver streams during the weeks, right? There was many, most of the time when I was playing draft leagues, I would have to not stream one night so I could do a draft league battle, right? That was just the way it was. When you messaged me and were like, oh, I got this draft league battle now, I was like, what? Against Silver at 10 a.m. What is he doing to you? That's crazy. No, there's sometimes you have to get up. You have to get up that early because you might be battling somebody in Australia, or you might be battling somebody over in the west of America, and they're working while I'm free, and it just so happens one of us has to stay up really late and the other one has to wake up really early. That's the way it is. But 5 hour time difference, it's not that difficult. You could have easily just,
Right. I'm going to cut you off there, because before you continue going off on Silver, I just want to point out it wasn't completely his fault. We knew that we wanted to get it done early. I think it was unfortunate that it had to wait until Saturday morning, but it was really me who really wanted to get it done super early, because I wanted to have my team builder up before the battle ended. But I definitely think we could have waited a couple hours. It still would have been 7 a.m. and my team builder wouldn't have gone up.
Should have just delayed the team builder. What's wrong with you? God.
I have a set upload schedule. I have to
Oh.
stick to that. Like people have to expect videos at a certain time.
On one day, you just not release a video on time and see where it gets you. Just see the reaction.
I'll just upload at like 11:30 p.m. and see what happens.
Yeah, 11:31 or something like that. 1 minute past the hour.
Some random time. Yeah.
Oh my god! But yeah, if you're a draft league player, guys, don't be that dick that force someone to get up at 5 a.m. unless you really have to. Right? Don't be that dick. Also one final note. Actually, I was very impressed with Slack King's video and I wanted to say that now because I thought his commentary was brilliant. I just want to say it now because we're about to move into WBE. Unless you got anything else to say on the UBL, but oh no, we'll talk about the semi-finals before we move into WBE. But when we move into WBE, I do have a critique for one coach, and I just want to mention that Slacking had a really good commentary and use that as a comparison. But
I do have something else to say about this actually. I am really sad that Dr. Slacking won that game because Ultra Player was actually the player who I think I have a better matchup against, and I don't get to battle that matchup now, so there we are.
But you're over against Slacking next, right?
I am up against Slacking next, and I don't switch in to like Diggersby or Infernape or any of them.
You're supposed to say that. You're supposed to like, I got all the switch-ins, right? That's what you're supposed to say.
Of course. Oh yeah, I gotta bluff him, right? I deal with these Pokemon. You don't bring them, sort of thing.
Yeah. What do you mean you don't switch it to Diggersby? Like, will you? Like, you have a hip out on. You're sound. Don't worry about it. You're grand. You have a Gramble.
Oh, yeah. That takes 2 choice banded returns, right?
Yeah. You have a Gramble. Intimidate. Easy, right? Job done. Simple, right? Okay, you know. But yeah, what's it called? We won't talk about your semi-final against Slacking. But definitely can't wait to see who's going to win that one. But we have
already happened, believe it or
not. We can't wait to see the result of it. But we won't talk about it because we don't want you we don't want you revealing stuff. So we keep it
accidentally spoiling stuff.
Yeah, we don't want that. But we'll talk about Vepsis and Dai. Who do you think is going to win?
I think you have an opinion based on which roster somebody's playing with, but I really think Vepsis has the upper hand right here, just based off of battling capability.
I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly. I think Vepsis wins because I think that Vepsis has the higher skill set, and I think Vepsis has a good squad and a squad. Now, granted that Dai has not the God squad anymore, but a very good squad because Dai obviously butchered my squad, but. But I think they're both good squads, but I think Vepsis is the better player, and I think exactly. And I think the problem is that Vepsis would predict them on an awful lot of stuff. Vepsis would predict Lando T to come in on a load of muck every time, and he'll bring Gliscor to Wallet, or he'll bring in Scizor to Wallet. I think it'd be very simple, and then Latios, Bisharp, and Decidueye won't be able to deal with a load of muck. I think a load of muck does an awful lot of work this game. And I think the only way Dai has to beat is Lando T. But Vepsis has so many answers for Lando T. It's a bit crazy. So I think, the fact that one Pokemon kind of is able to shut down Dai's team a little bit, and Vepsis has answers for the one breaker and switch in for it, I think that leads to Vepsis winning. Now, it's not that Dai does not have answers for Vepsis' team. Like, Dai has a lot of threats. Dai still has that Sand. He has Mega Pinsir. He has Lando T. He's got an awful lot of good stuff there going for him. But I think when you're talking about the mid-game and getting the valuable chip you need for Pokemon to sweep, I think Vepsis would get the good chip he needs just off one Pokemon, whereas Dai needs a couple of Pokemon to get the chip he needs for to break through Vepsis' roster. That's my take on it. What's your take?
Exactly. Well, I see certain breakers on Dai's team that can do really well. I don't know if I should actually say them because they haven't played their semifinals game yet. Do you care if I do, or?
I don't mind. If they have, they've done the prep, right? So I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. What I could see doing a lot of work right here is like a Dragon Dance regular Latios with a mixed spread of like Earthquake, Hidden Power, Fire, and the Dragon Pulse, I guess, would be the next best thing. I think it does really well in the speed control aspect, but it's also able to pressure Pokemon like Alolan Muck and the Diancie. Now, it'll obviously be interesting to see whether Vepsis is going to bring specific checks, like maybe Shuka Berry on his Alolan Muck, maybe Shuka Berry on the Diancie, but I really could see that set being a great endgame for die right here if he wants to try to go for that.
Do you see him then setting up on the Celebi?
Well, I think Celebi gets access to Thunderwave, so he really has to scout for that. I think Ala Momola is nice setup fodder, but you have to watch out for potentially a Scald Burn. I think that Moltres can easily be set up on, but obviously you have to scout for the Z move first. There are options, but if he can get it to work, I really see it doing the job.
I don't know if he can set up on the Ala Momola. I would assume Ala Momola would have Toxic.
Yeah, that would be true. I mean, even if it Toxics, you could potentially set up and then try to get a couple kills with it, maybe put yourself in the better position. I don't know. I really see him using it as an endgame scenario, though. It is tough, though, because there are lots of priority moves that threaten it. Shadow Sneak from Greninja, Alolan Muck, and then Bullet Punch from the Scissor.
Yeah, and if he goes EQ, Dragon Pulse, you have to have Hidden Power Fire.
Yeah.
I think Celebi beats that. I know what you mean. It's an interesting set. I'd be dead curious to see if it works. I would be very, very curious.
I feel like against Vepsis, he might anticipate it and just completely shut it down. But it's actually a great endgame right here. I think the coverage does really well.
Oh, the coverage as well. But Dai does have to get valuable chip on an awful lot of Pokemon to make sure that does the work.
Yeah, for sure.
He does, and he also has he does have a good few threats. Because I don't see an answer for Stoutland on Vepsis' team.
Wow, actually, yeah. Where does the normal resist? His normal resist is Scissor, and that gets blown away by Fire Fang. Yeah, so I don't know.
And he's got the NC as well. So like EQ, Fire Fang, Crunch, Return, kind of just walks through Vepsis' team almost. So there's he might not want to run. He might not want to run Crunch. He might run Ice Fang for Gliscor. So I think like there, like as you said, Dai has the breakers, but I think Vepsis as the overall player will be able to shut him down because he'll bring in a load of muck, he'll get the chip he needs, and then he will bring in either Greninja or Mega Glade to finish off the game. That's the way I see it.
I don't know. I could see it going either way, but I think just based off of player skill, I don't see Vepsis losing. Pretty much what you've said over and over again. But yeah.
And then I'm going to sit here next week and I'm going to be like, Dai, you should never change the team. I gave you the league. I gave you a title right there, and you ruined it. So wait for that one, guys. Wait for that one. All right, okay, we will switch gears. I know the UBL took a while, but UBL is actually the most interesting thing going at the moment, so that's the reason why we spent a while on it. We will have a quick touch on the BBL. I watched a little bit of BBL this week. I saw Leo versus JB Westside. It was a grand chill game, if you ask me. It wasn't too crazy. It was none of the same craziness that we saw from Leo in week 1.
Against Matt,
yeah, exactly. Like JB kind of put a bit of pressure on a little bit with the crowd on, but but the fact that Leo forgot to have a huge power in Azuma meant it kind of slowed him down a little bit. But once he got over that and managed to kind of play around it, Leo kind of put himself in a win position and won. So it wasn't too crazy there. And I watched Aaron's game as well. It was a bit strange watching Aaron's side of a battle because he streams his battles. I think that's a bit of a hindrance for him, actually. I don't think he's actually 100% sharp when he streams his battles. I think he's too busy talking to the chat and trying to be entertaining rather than making reads 3 or 4 plays down the line. I think that's definitely
rather than trying to win, basically, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I know. I think so. Like, he's there, like, congratulating his opponent. Oh, good play there. I'm like, yeah, buddy. Maybe if you focus a little bit on the battle and making the right reads might, stop you from being 0-3 in the league that you have made. That might help. Just a small little thing.
Yeah.
But that's what I saw this week. It's still it's a fun, cool league to watch because there's just so many broken ones that they get to play with. Like I saw Arceus, crazy, but it's hilarious to see an Arceus go around throwing judgments around the place in a draft league battle. So that's always cool. Did you watch any of the league, bud?
I did. I watched Kelly versus... I completely forgot who he played now. It was Mastodon, coach of the Mastodon Gastrodons. And basically, there was an endgame. There was 30 minutes left on timer. Mastodon, I believe, had the game with his setup Arceus, and then Kelly crits through it with, I think, a low kick from his Mega Mewtwo X, and argues that, the crit was justified. We don't want to go to timer, but I really think that game should have been Mastodons. Easily would have knocked out the last 3 Pokemon on Kelly's team before the timer went off. I really don't know what he was thinking there. Obviously, there might be something that I'm completely missing, but maybe.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. If you turn around and say, "Oh, we don't want the game to go to timer," like no player wants the game to go to timer, but if it means you're going to win, unfortunately, you got to go down that route. And to be honest, you should only be kind of thinking about timer when there's like 5 minutes left in a match and you can't break through anything, but you got an extra Pokemon. And you're like, well, screw this. I can't break through him, but I got an extra Pokemon, so we're going down the timer. You know, that's the only time when he's 30 minutes in and he's complaining about a timer. Then get out of here, man. You don't be don't want to hear it.
Yeah, if you know you've lost to this Arceus, even if it takes 20 minutes to happen, just take the L, dude. You lost to this Arceus, just let it happen.
Yeah, exactly. Let the Arceus pick you off. You never know. Anything could have happened, but you can't justify Hax's win con.
Yeah, now I will give Kelly credit for he knew that he had Lokic as his crit win con. I really think that's really the drawback to setup, especially bulky setup psychic types.
Yeah.
It wasn't Arceus psychic, but like when you're just clicking recover and setup moves over and over again, you have to expect it, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, it's going to happen at some point. Yeah, I totally agree. It's the only drawback. I remember, there was one draft league game I had, and I don't know why. It was a long time ago, but I had an Umbreon. Don't ask me why I drafted Umbreon, but had an Umbreon. Curse setup. Win. Yeah, the win was in the bag. Crit. Umbreon broke me through. Lost the game. Simple as that. It's the only drawback to bulky setup or bulky defensive setup. Crits happen.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, they do happen all the time. That's why if you actually watch all my draft league games this year, I'm pretty sure I've brought setup to 2 games. My UBL Week 10 game versus Root, and I brought setup or Uniclus to one of my WPL games. I really hate setup just for that reason. I think that just going on the offense, throwing out attacks, and actually forming an offensive game plan is the more reliable strategy.
Yeah, I like offensive setup myself. I think if you can get into a situation where you can play Solar Stance or D-Dance, go for it. I always prep to say, all right, I want to set up. Which Pokemon's going to do set up? What's the scenario I can set up in? These are the 2 scenarios that I could actually create fairly reliably for me to set up. I'm going to set up, and if I can't do that, something's getting banded.
Then just don't bring the setup. It's not worth it. You're just gonna get locked.
Exactly. So there's one or another. But I've nothing else to say on the BBL. I didn't get to watch too much of it. BBL,
not the most exciting week, but maybe it'll pick up from here.
Yeah, look, it's a nice fun league because of all the Ubers that are in it. So it's always good to watch. So if you guys haven't checked it out, definitely do so. I think they'll have they have an early week upload, so they'll be uploaded like on a Monday or a Tuesday, and they'll have their power rankings for week 4 coming out soon, I think, because they do it every second week. So definitely go check them out.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on to the WBE. We'll have a quick roundup of this. Jelly and I, we were talking off air. This was a very boring week in the WBE. We both
not
agreed.
A lot of good games.
Yeah. Standard of play wasn't high. I suppose we did say at one point a few podcasts ago that the WBE probably has the more entertained, the bigger names, but when it comes to skill wise, I wouldn't say that they're all the most skilled battlers going, and they definitely could have got more skillful battlers. Just the way it is. But we will take a look. We'll have a quick recap of the results for week 11.
There's actually one game that I actually do want to touch on a bit more. I don't know if you watched it, but you're cool if I point it out here.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah, so I don't know if you watched Wolf versus Vivid.
I did.
Vivid actually managed to clutch that game out with the Noivern spamming Earth Slash at the end, which I thought was really mind-boggling. I've seen Vivid be super inconsistent this season. Obviously, his record doesn't completely show that, but I really think that he's one of the weaker contenders. But just to see him actually manage to clutch that out, especially focusing on a win con in Noivern, was really cool to see executed against that Mandibuzz.
Yeah, no, it was really cool to see. I think Wolfie kind of definitely misplayed this week, and it's not often you see him misplay, but he definitely misplayed a few times this week. He allowed his X-Ray to get weakened, and that was his only conventional answer on his team, so that was a bit strange to see it get him weakened, and he was really running out of Noivern answers very early in the game, which is very strange. He's normally a lot more savvy with that kind of stuff. And I thought his game plan was very, very good. Actually, he realized very quickly that Gengar could do so much work against Vivid, but for whatever reason, after like a couple of times Gengar came in, Gengar just got really weakened, and he couldn't. Wolfie couldn't just freely bring Gengar as much, and he had to be a lot more careful with how Gengar was being used, which is very, very.
Yeah, that's really what held him back. When your best breaker is something that can't reliably break, then you know you're in a bad spot.
Yeah, it was very. It was kind of. It was tough because it was getting to the point where Gengar clicked Shadow Ball and nothing came in on a Shadow Ball from Gengar. Like it was, Gengar is probably one of the more underrated Pokemon in the format. But when Gengar came in, there was nothing that Vivid had as an answer. Something was going to either get dropped or be brought or get broken. It was going to take over 50%. So that was obviously really, really nice damage. But I think Wolfie just couldn't bring in Gengar as freely, and a lot of answers for his Pokemon were getting worn down. And I thought it was a bit crazy that he allowed Blastoise to get toxic and worn down, and Blastoise was his Mega Aggron answer. I don't kind of like that matchup. Like, I've used Mega Aggron before in Draft League. Mega Aggron is no problem sitting there taking Aura Sphere and toxic and a bulky water type just to get that toxic off, and then getting out of there.
That filter is so good.
Yeah, filter is animal. So like, I think that was I think for Wolfie it was like, oh yeah, that's no problem. I'm just going to click Aura Sphere here and hit this aggro. We'll get a good bit of damage off. I don't think he kind of properly examined that matchup well enough to kind of say that's actually a trade-off that a lot of players will take. They will take a toxic on a bulky water type from if it's Mega Aggro, and then switch out and allow somebody else, and then kind of pivot around it, because then it got to the point where Blastoise wasn't an answer for Noivern, and it just slowly started to unravel then for Wolfie, slowly but surely after that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way
I'm pretty sure he's locked for playoffs. I don't know if he'd want to mask playoff strategies, but not the strongest game on his end. I think. Mm-hmm. Well, I think Vivid played an average game, but Wolfie just played a bad one. That's really what it came down to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. It was a bit. I think it was definitely more so Vivid kind of played closer to his ceiling, whereas Wolfie had more of an off day. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I also watched. Let me have a look. Just having a quick flick through them again. I didn't watch everything because the standard was so poor this week. I watched Auto versus A Drive, and I watched Pokemon versus Steve. I watched it on Auto's side. Did you watch Auto's game versus A Drive this week?
I did, but I watched A Drive's side, not Auto's.
Yeah. Now I watched Auto's side, and it was kind of. I kind of felt for him because he knew exactly what went wrong so early, because he knew he shouldn't have let Raikou and Clefable taken as much damage. But I thought Auto did very well and bring the game back and put Dan under a bit more pressure. But once them two were gone, there was no Lycanroc answer on Auto's team at all.
There was actually a point in that game where I saw Scarflatios just cleaning with Psyshock based on A Drive letting Florges get so weak, but that Sucker Punch is just way too strong, and Auto didn't really. I think he anticipated it, but he just didn't really try to play around it as well. He didn't try to stall out all late or anything.
I'll be perfectly honest. When I see Lycanroc, I immediately don't assume Sucker Punch. Like that's a nice tech to have.
You can see Accelerock, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you see Accelerock, you see Stone Edge, you see Crunch, and you see Drill Run. You see kind of or Fire Fang or one of those other fine moves, but like you never or Sword Stance or Stealth Rocks. Like those would be the standard kind of pool that Lycanroc would use. Sucker Punch is there, but because
that was a really good tech. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, as you said, really good tech. But it's not something that's massive bring, because Accelerock is the bread and butter. It's the bread and butter for. So I thought it was a really nice bring. Whoever was in Dan's front office that suggested bring Sucker Punch for the Latios, that was a really good idea.
Yeah, especially on a team that was so Psyshock weak. Such a good bring.
Yeah, it was really, really good, and it also freed up the Kyurem to not be not be scarfed and be Z move and nuke something. So really, really nice bring. I felt that Auto probably put himself in a really good position after being far behind, but you don't it's not something that you overly concern yourself for. Like when you lose Clef and Raikou, you just gotta kind of go with it and say, right, okay, Latios is my win con. Let's wear down Floor just a bit, wear down Kyurem a little bit, and just win with Psyshock, and that's what I did. But the tech was there by Dan. So I think it was more so just prep by Dan really got him, and then auto and reflection realizing I should have had something to potentially stop the Rock. Probably.
Yeah, exactly.
We're just back around to the first segment where we said where I made the point that a draft league player would always say that they have more tech to scout for, but it is what it is. That's
exactly.
Very much like you get those weeks to happen. Did you watch any other games? I want to ask you before we dive into the GBA kind of throwback match.
Yeah, sure. I didn't really. I mean, I watched some of the boring ones. I watched Joey versus Boff. Joey had a bad matchup, but just 6-0 because Boff had no idea what he was doing.
Jeez.
And I watched MV versus Elliot, but that was a good game. Like, I'm pretty sure MV only won 1 or 2-0, but it was pretty clear, like, halfway through, MV was in the driver's seat, even after he lost his Mega Turn 1, and he knew what his win condition was. So nothing really special there. But what was the GBA throwback? Steve and John, right?
Pokemon, yeah, John. So I watched it on John's side, and Jesus, I'm not going to watch another game on his side for the rest of the league anyways. God almighty, I nearly died having to watch it. It was, you could tell he's a shiny hunter now anyways based on his commentary. It was awful, like, oh my God. But yeah, but it was though, like, honestly, it was shocking, like, it was absolutely shocking.
Yeah, he was one of the more consistent battlers here though, nice and 8-3 now.
But... Yeah, nice and 8-3 now. I thought Steve... Do you know the way Steve can be hot and cold? He can come up with some insanely mad stuff, and it'll just, you won't have an answer for it, and you will lose. Or
what I find with Steve is he'll come up with some insanely good stuff, and then he'll just choke it away anyway. He doesn't execute it, right?
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it. Like he's like two different players sometimes. Like it's just mad. But this is definitely one of the weeks where he came up with crazy stuff, and it just never worked. And John just had couple of nice things, picked stuff off. John was definitely not 100% plugged in because he forgot some things as the battle went on about his Pokemon, about his team, and then he remembered and switched up his game plan a little bit and what have you. Like he forgot he had Yachi Berry on Decidueye to lure in Swampert, and and then he remembered suddenly, oh wait a minute, I have this, so let me bring in Decidueye now on free switching to Swampert. Yeah, this is great, and what have you. So it was kind of, to be honest, it was a kind of a boring match because Steve never put enough pressure on John, and John never seemed to really be clued in as to what was going on. Especially that's what came across on his live com. Anyways, it definitely looked like he was under no pressure. He might as well have just been shiny hunting, as far as I'm concerned, or it could have been he could have gone off and done something altogether. Like I won't mention. I was going to come up with an innuendo there, but I said I better not. But he could have done anything. Like he could have done anything there. I was miserable. So that's the reason why I wanted to say previously that I thought Sacking's commentary was absolutely fantastic, because that is a prime example of probably
the analysis, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's a prime example of somebody who is actually a really good draft league battler who also creates really good content, whereas John is probably a guy who used to be, or probably still is, a good draft league battler, but is not the same person when it comes to actually making entertaining content about draft league battles. And even then, based on that battle, I wasn't overly wowed by John, and I said last week's podcast I wasn't overly wowed by John's prep either. So I think 8-3 is very flattering for John at the moment. Even though he's locked for playoffs, I think he'll be picked off. I think someone can knock him over, and he'll be sitting there saying, "Oh, it wasn't meant to be." I'd be like, "Well, dude, like you weren't exactly." There was that one point where I could say he was hitting all cylinders in the WBE this year. So, if John ever drops out, I think Slacking should get a space. That's what I'm saying, because I can actually watch his videos.
Wow, straight up, you didn't hesitate with that one.
Didn't hesitate. I was like, dude, honestly, John, I'm a big John fan as well. I used to love it when he was properly doing it consistently on the GBA and he was plugged in. His videos were actually really good. He always gave a good bit of insight, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but it was, play by play was very interesting. God, his play-by-play commentary this week was just awful. Sorry.
The one thing I do enjoy about his commentary is I watched some of the other weeks. I love how lighthearted they are. Like, he doesn't take them overly seriously, but he still manages to perform. But I definitely get where you're coming from. His actual battling analysis, even on a live com, was so much better back in GBA Season 8 or even earlier GBA.
Yeah, because he still kept it lighthearted, but there was a seriousness to it. Like when he needed to get plugged in and make a a tough call or make a decision. Like you could tell the gears were going in his mind as he was going through his process, and then while he waited for things to unfold, he'd be more lighthearted. But it seems like the gears are rusty. Needs a bit of oil. Needs to be lubricated up a little bit and get going again if he wants to win. So that's the way I look at it.
For sure.
All right, will we have a quick look at the playoff permutations, will we?
Yeah, sure. We can just run through who you think are... Well, obviously, you know who's making it at this point. It's pretty clear, but we can maybe analyze some of the potential matchups and who we think is going to come out on top.
I think if we look at the sword division first, will we?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know how it works, but I think it's going to be first seed in the sword division versus 7th seed in the shield division, right? Because they're on even numbers, so I'm assuming that's how it's going to work. I think right now this could be a really good game. I think Uzi, who we actually said a couple of weeks ago, remember that if Uzi comes in and performs to his highest capabilities, he could sneak in playoffs. He's now got the 7th berth in the Shield division.
Yeah, he's that green spot. Yeah,
yeah.
It's funny. Otto took over the team with the better record, and he's so far below Uzi now. It's kind of sad.
I do kind of like Uzi is the better battler, but I think Otto as well. Like we said a while ago, I think nerves get to him, and the one time and his best performance was against a coach he had already played in the UBL. So I think the nerves kind of get to him. Now, to be fair, it was more of a misplay against Dan, so it wasn't nerves, but I think his first game was definitely had an awful lot of nerves to it. But I think Joey versus Uzi could be really good. I think Uzi will come up with some nice tech and really throw Joey a little bit, and Joey will actually be tested a lot more than he has been in other battles, so that should be a really good battle. I think Joey will come out on top, but it's not gonna be like a
cakewalk for like every other game he's had.
Yeah, exactly. Like Joey would be forced into a few 50-50s because Uzi is a decent battler. So I'm looking forward to seeing that matchup. That should be really good.
I'm going to be real here. The only people who I see taking down Joey when he has Gypsy King prepping for him, or at least helping him prep, are MV and Gator. I don't see anybody else beating that prep.
That's ridiculous when you look at it like that. Like, you don't think Leo has a chance?
What do you say?
You don't think Leo would have a chance of beating Joey?
I don't. I've seen Leo obviously beat Gypsy King prep in the P4G, but Joey basically checked out at that point. He was like, okay, I got frozen in week 10. Let's just have Gypsy build and see what I can make happen. I don't see Joey losing again to anybody except for MV or Gator.
I don't know. I kind of fancy Leo. I'm not gonna lie. I think Leo could do it against them.
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, Leo's been super inconsistent this season. He nearly lost to Mewtwo Fan8 in week like 1 or 2. I don't think he's really playing at the level where he can take down.
But now to be fair, we did say at one point that when he lost the GBA finals, like he put so much into GBA that everything else was getting forgotten about because that was the league he wanted to win. So I wouldn't be holding his early season form.
That is true. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit, but I don't know. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think Leo has the matchup. I actually think Leo has the matchup. I think Leo can shut down Mega Gallade because he's got Uniclus and Alola to do it, and Joey, he has I think the only problem for Leo is that he has to break through Toxapex, because because he's got a bulky side type to deal with Megalopunny, but I think Alola Muck can beat that, and he has Uniclus that can eat up Mach Punch from Balloon. So I think so when you kind of look at the team makeup, Megalopunny has a decent matchup here against Joey. So I think Leo could beat him, but I would lean towards Joey winning as well.
Yeah,
I would agree. Is there? I think the way it stands at the moment, like it's hard to tell who's going to be making the lower seeds, but I think Dan's probably going to get 2nd seed, and Wolfie's going to get 3rd seed, and John's going to get 4th seed on the Sword division. So that would have Under the Radar versus John, and as I said earlier, I think John could beat or can be beaten. I think someone could easily turn over John.
Exactly. Yeah, I could see. I really see Kelly winning that game, but I don't know. It's really a toss-up.
Yeah, it's a toss-up. I think that's very 50-50. If the standings stay the way they are right now, I cannot wait to see Leo versus Wolfie. That's going to be a great game.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Have we ever seen them that matchup before? Maybe in the GBA? I forget.
Don't think so. So that should be a really good match. Really, really good
Yeah.
match. Is there anything else that you're looking forward to seeing?
Oh, actually, we need to correct that. I think Leo and Wolfie did battle in the APA, and I'm pretty sure Wolfie 6-0'd with Megazard X or something. Or I think Leo 6-0'd with Megazard X. One of the two 6-0'd.
All right, okay. Well, we're looking forward to seeing that matchup again, anyways, because Wolfie's
Yeah.
playing very well. Bar previous just this week gone, he's been playing very well, so that should be a really good game to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you got anyone else that's worth mentioning that could potentially be a match?
Not really. I mean, all of the lower seeds are kind of a toss-up, and it's pretty clear who the higher seeds are going to be at this point. It's just really about the seeding.
Yeah, I think so. I think Mr. Talent might sneak into the 7th seed because he just needs one win and he's got the diff. So I think he might sneak in.
He's got 14 differential over Patters, so we'll see how that works.
Yeah, so I think Patters will slip, and I think Uzi will hold out the 7th seed and maybe potentially get the 6th. I would love to see him get 6th actually, 6th or 7th.
Yeah, when you take it, when you take the 13th seed team and bring it all the way up to 6th, you know you're doing something right.
Oh yeah, no, you've done well. You've done very, very well. So
it's so unfortunate though, because if he won against Top, he would pretty much be locked with one more win at this point. It's so sad.
I know it's very tough. But to be fair, now Top play that was mine, like and
yeah, that was a good game. Actually.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really good, entertaining game. So it is what it is. But I think that's it for the WBE discussion. Hopefully we have better matchups next week. Because week 11 was actually shocking.
I wouldn't be surprised if we don't though, just because I see a lot of players just masking their playoff strategies and trying not to really reveal too much. So it might be underwhelming for the last 2 weeks, but hopefully something cool happens.
Yeah, I think it definitely be interesting. Like we have a couple of really big matches up at the top of the rankings. Like we see Gator versus Kelly, but I say the two of them might be masking. Dan versus Wolfie. I think the two of them would mask some stuff.
Yeah. Maybe we have Dan versus Joey in week 13 right there. So
yeah, so I think there's going to be an awful lot of masking. Like as you said, people not revealing their strats. Probably the more interesting ones are going to be those ones knocking around sadly not the most. Right? Yeah, exactly. Them lower playoff seeds, like not the most skilled coaches, but they're except Uzi. I highly rate Uzi, but not the most skilled coaches, but the ones that are kind of fighting for them playoff berths. They're probably going to be the most interesting ones because they can't mask anything, whereas the higher seed coaches, they don't care at this point because they're going to be locked in.
Yeah, those guys have to pull up. They have to win like pretty much every game to lock their spots. So we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be very, very interesting because it's just the way it. For me as a higher seed, like there's no difference between being second. There's no difference between being 4th seed and 3rd seed because you're still going to have a tough matchup against the other division. So unless you can get the 2nd seed, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I think that's probably enough for WBE, right?
That is probably enough for WBE. We'll quickly wrap up the pod because we got one Twitter question from you guys. So thank you very much. Keep the questions coming in, but we'll quickly wrap it up. We got one question.
It's not the most competitively geared question, but hey, we'll cover it. It's kind of interesting.
We'll cover everything here, guys. We'll cover what you guys want to know. But question, Jelly. From Fritters or Fritzwald. I know this guy. I know this guy for a few years now, so I get confused when he's using it. When I see his Twitter name, I'm like, he's changed it again, but I know who he is. So
Yeah.
But anyways, he asked, would you rather have the ability to transfer all the legendary Pokemon from your handhelds, given there is a lot, or since it's a new world in Sword and Shield, would you like to start your collection again and maybe get new events shiny collection? I'm going to say that I want all Pokemon.
Can I tackle this one?
Oh yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. Take it.
Sorry. I was just gonna mention how the events are really nostalgic to a lot of OG fans, right? The mystery gifts. I don't know if you played during that era, but I would really love to see new events. But I definitely cut you off there. So what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I don't really go about collecting Pokemon. I want to play competitive Pokemon, right? Yeah. So apologies for the noise in the background, but if I can bring all my competitive sets across, then therefore it makes it easier for me to get Pokemon with master breeding, But if I can bring competitive Pokemon across and just play competitive Pokemon, I want to do that. That's the way I would like to play the game, because for me going trying to catch every legendary again, I play Pokemon for the story, and then when I complete the story, I want to have my competitive Pokemon ready to go so I can battle somebody. That's the way I like to play my game.
I think that if the Pokemon company really wanted to give us like a win-win on both sides, which clearly they don't want to, but if we really wanted that, they would just give us new events, but also give us the ability to transfer everything. But that's not happening.
No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I would like them to do a certain point where you're allowed to transfer Pokemon, right? So when you're Elite Four champion, you've won. So you've completed the main story, and then there's post game whatever. But you've completed the main story. I would like them to be able to say, okay, now you can transfer Pokemon, right? Because then that way, the more casual players are like, oh, well, you didn't just get a level 100 Pokemon and, play through it. Like, you're not playing through the game properly. And also it means that you actually have to, earn the ability to, get your Pokemon from previous games. So I would like them to have that, if anything.
Exactly. I think a really cool mechanic would actually be, as you progress through the game and your Pokemon's levels get higher, you can transfer Pokemon to the max level of your current Pokemon. So if you have a level 42 as your highest level, whether it's in your party or the box, you can transfer anything level 40 or 2 or below from another game and add it to your story.
Yeah, that could be interesting. That could be an interesting one. Yeah. I like that, because then therefore you never get broken.
Right? Yeah, you never get broken, but you can still use what you want. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That might be a bit too complicated for the Pokemon company to handle, because
I don't see it, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I think hopefully that answers your question, buddy. If you guys have further questions, make sure to reach out to us on Discord or on Twitter, because we love to hear them. That's at the Core Enforcers, or at IrishEmerald, or at OPJellicent on Twitter. Let us know what your thoughts on the podcast are in the comment section down below if you're watching on YouTube or on Twitter. And let us know on Twitter if you're also listening on the other podcast streams as well, because I plugged them, but I don't know how many of you guys listen to them. But let me know if you listen to it there as well. And if you have anything else you want us to talk about on the show, or different things you want us to bring up on the show, let us know.
Exactly, yeah. And also, leave us the draft leagues. Let us know that whether there's any small-time draft leagues or players that you want us to talk about, and we'll for sure get to it.
Definitely. And hopefully we get Smogon news soon, because...
Yeah, there better be some September tier changes. Like, come on,
please. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up here today, folks. Hopefully you guys enjoy listening. Thank you so much for all that. And we will see you next week. Thanks, guys.
Later.